really like it that you mentioned that seasons change and you have to constantly ask yourself, who do I want to be? Who am I? And how do I marry these parts? Knowing that, how does that change the way you educate your children?
Wow, those are big questions. I mean, my kids are 5 and 3, so they're still pretty young.
Yeah.
One thing that I guess I try to focus on is who they are versus who they want to be. I think it's quite common to hear like, oh, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? And usually it's some kind of occupation, right?
Yeah.
And that's great. Nothing against that. But I want to constantly tell them. So, for example, with my daughter, I tell her pretty much every night, like, you're brave and you're kind and you're strong. Like to, I guess, infuse her with these positive values or to let her know who she is and that she's deeply loved by me. I mean, that sometimes that goes without saying, but maybe we don't say it enough. So I think it's super important. I think it goes back to that whole question of who I am and am I loved and what is my value? So it's really, for me, giving them that value that will stand the test of time. Hi folks, Sarah Wong, your host here. So today's episode is a really special one. I'm actually the guest this time on the Soft Power Project podcast with Sherry Fang. She was a former guest in our show a few episodes before, and Sherry talks to women navigating big life transitions. And in this conversation, I got the privilege to share my own. We dug deep into my season of job loss during my second pregnancy, the reverse culture shock of transitioning back to Singapore after years being overseas, and how my faith and even this podcast helped me through it. I also share how those experiences have fundamentally reshaped how I parent and view life and work. So if you or someone you know is in the middle of a tough transition, I really feel you, and I hope this reminds you that you are not lost. You are becoming. Now, on to the episode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Soft Power Project. And today I'm so excited we get to talk to Sarah from Silicon Valley to podcast host and producer, Make It Work. And almost 2 years in, she's already featured in Channel News Asia for one of the 8 best podcasts for women in Singapore. So I'm so excited to talk to Sarah about her journey going from Silicon Valley to being a podcaster and how she maintained her mental health and diet in this journey. So hi, Sarah.
Hi, Sherry. Good to see you again.
Yes, we also did an episode on Make It Work. So I'll leave all the links below to check out her episode, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, I just really interested to know kind of your story on how you decided to say, all right, I'm going to be a content creator, a podcaster. Let me do this. Yeah.
Right. So I always tell people that it started out of a series of pretty tricky and some painful transitions. Some transitions were kind of self-chosen and some were thrust upon me. Some of them included becoming a mom. I also, at that point of time, so 2022, 3 years ago now, so that was when all these transitions started happening, where I was going to be a second-time mom, and I had moved from the US to Singapore again, and I was also in the midst of a work transition that happened pretty unexpectedly. My husband was also taking on a new job, and we basically were coming back into a place or a plot line of a story that had happened like for the past 6 years, because we were away for that period of time, where I felt like I was being dropped back into like in the middle of a story that I needed to find who I was, what happened to the characters. If you just miss out a piece, it's like, your friends and everyone has changed. I had changed. I left as a single person, and then I came back with 1 kid and 2 on the way. So basically, there were just a lot of transitions that were happening in my life at that point in time. And I realized that hit at the core of the question of who I was. I was trying to struggle to figure out who I am and my identity. And that was when I started to really have these conversations with ambitious women who had done interesting career pivots in their work life to make room for, I think, the most important thing, which is family. Because that was really the question that I had for myself with 1.5 kids. I was trying to figure out, okay, now with this new place, new time, what do I want to do and who do I want to be? So that was me talking to other people and realized that these conversations were so precious, so valuable. I knew that it would benefit so many other people, my peers who I knew were struggling with these as well. And yeah, that was how it came out. It wasn't really a plan to be a podcaster from, before, but I had the time and space, I think, to really wrestle and create something out of it. So
That's amazing. I mean, if you don't mind, share with us a little bit on how did you cope with so many uncertainties at that time? Because you mentioned there were so many different transitions, not just for you, but for your husband as well. Yeah. How was it like for you?
yeah, a picture comes to my mind. It was of me with my big belly, and I'm in an empty condo with my then 18-month-old, and we were just having, I guess, instant noodles or something because with the
Wow.
luggages out in the hall. And yeah, it was a picture of me pretty much like the hot mess kind of mom, like hair, in a bun, and just like in the singlet, because sweating from the Singapore heat that my body hadn't like accustomed to after being away for so long. And just feeling like, wow, okay, there's just so much happening that I felt lost. But there was also a good quote that I saw recently that spoke to me. It's like, when you are lost, you think you're lost, but actually you're not lost, and you're in the process of becoming. And so when I look back at that, it gives me chills because I know the frame of mind that I was in at a point in time of like feeling like, oh my goodness, what is going to happen? I'm going to have a baby, and I don't know what I'm going to do with my job. I know that my husband is starting something new, which means I need to be like a bit more stable. And all my friends, I had to reconnect and everything. I just was in a bit of a haze. But now I look back, I'm like, wow, this was one of the defining moments of me. So just feeling like I didn't know where I was, and I was really in the process of becoming. And it's a very powerful image in my mind because that's the beauty of, I think, being in the midst of transitions where you don't know where you're going. But when you look back, you realize that it forms you very much. Yeah. I mean, I would also say definitely like my faith as a Christian has been a huge, huge constant. I think that's the only constant in all the changes in life. And having that was just also really reassuring and calming to know that, I can't see the big picture.
Yeah.
I just see the dots in front of me. But when I zoom out and I believe that he's got my back, like God's got my back, he can see the big picture. I just need to kind of trust. Yeah. So you're in the process of becoming.
Yes. I love that. And I wanted to know a little bit more on that trust and like for you, the trust in God, because I've often heard this phrase, surrender to, universe, surrender to God. But what does it actually feel like? Because I think it's such a difficult concept, especially when you're fearing, you're anxious about the future. How do you trust? Well, what does that actually feel like to you?
I think it feels like you're in the midst of a really storming ocean with an anchor. Like you can't really see it, but you know that there's this deep-rooted sense that kind of everything's going to be all right. You don't really know where you're going, but you believe that that God will lead you to the right path. And for me, what I've learned is taking that next step. Just, you don't need to know all the steps.
Yeah.
You just need to know your next step, I think. And that has been a huge guiding light as well. Yeah, being rooted in that belief, constantly meditating on his word and knowing that, looking at my past, because I guess when I don't know where my future is leading, looking at my past helps to feel reassured that it will work out. And I just need to know my next step, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because that's something I've always wondered how to actually feel the trust. And as you said, it is by practice, right? It's almost like a muscle that you do actually have to practice and formed in order to trust. And you mentioned that it is a process of becoming. To you, what is the becoming, or what is your kind of goal as to where you wanted to head to?
This feels like it's getting really meta right now. Did not expect this. Well, where am I heading? I think first and foremost, as much as I want to say you need to know yourself, I think because God has been such a big part of my life, I think the first and foremost thing is to realize who God is and that he's the one in control. So when I have that in the right perspective, to know that as long as I'm in him and walking in him, it will lead in the right direction. At least I know that I'm directionally right? And then the other piece about knowing myself is where I guess I can talk a little bit more in the past few years.
Yeah.
Where I have because of all these transitions, and that's led to the Make It Work podcast, me exploring portfolio careers, it's helped me to understand, at least for this moment, where I see myself in balancing or juggling motherhood and career. And I think it's a constant question that we will be having throughout our lives, because things aren't constant. Yeah, just things keep changing, right? Like, I think it's been a huge blessing in being in this fog or this transition, this, liminal moment, to take a pause and see who I currently am, what I have as my responsibilities, like being a mom, being a wife, being a daughter, all these things, and what are the things that make me as well at the same time, and how do I marry those two? Things look so different like 10 years ago, right? When I was hustling to get into Silicon Valley versus now when I'm like back in Singapore with 2 young kids. And so that question is something that I realized I needed to keep asking because, the seasons change.
Yeah. I think that is beautiful in a way because, yes, season changed. And I think as humans, sometimes we wanted to have so much control in our life that we assume that once we fix this, nothing's going to change. We keep seeking to fix problems, where sometimes we see like changes as problems as well. But I really like it that you mentioned that, seasons change and you have to constantly ask yourself, who do I want to be? Who am I? And how do I marry these parts? And I think knowing that, how does that change the way you educate your children? And how does that change the way you interact with them?
Wow, those are big questions. I mean, my kids are 5 and 3, will be 5 and 3, so they're still pretty young.
Yeah,
they're definitely still pretty young. One thing that I guess I try to change the focus on is who they are versus who they want to be. I think it's quite common to hear like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And usually it's some kind of occupation, right?
Yeah.
And that's great. Nothing against that. But I want to constantly tell them. So, for example, with my daughter, I tell her pretty much every night, like, you're brave and you're kind and you're strong. Like, to, I guess, infuse her with these positive values that, or to let her know who she is and that she's deeply loved by me. That sometimes that goes without saying, but we don't say it enough. So I think it's super important. I think it goes back to that whole question of who I am and am I loved and do I have value? What is my value? So with that, to answer your question, it's really, for me, giving them that value of that, I guess it will stand the test of time. It's not about a certain ambition or a certain job, but it's the core of who you are that I want to let them see is what is important and what I want them to build for themselves.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much about that. And I think it is really crucial for moms to constantly remind ourselves it's not really about the occupation. It's not the outcome, right? And I think a lot of times like, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer. And but remind them, no, you're beautiful, you're smart, you're intelligent, and the qualities that you hope that they will become. And I love that. I really do. So now, in the very beginning, we talked about this very successful podcast. Again, congratulations, because I think it's a lot of hard work and call it Make It Work. And you mentioned that you really hope that a lot of moms get to listen to all these different stories and, and to maybe answer the question they have on, it's like, what do I do to balance everything? What is your biggest learning from doing this podcast for almost 2 years?
Yeah, I'm going to give you, I guess, 2 learning. One that I learned only recently, that this podcast has been the therapy I never knew I needed, basically. And the funny thing is this realization happened like at 3 a.m. when my husband and I were having one of our usual 3 a.m. fights. I don't know why it always happens at that time, but okay. It's like when maybe that's like the stroke of inspiration when like, things like you suddenly see something clearer. But so what happened was essentially he was asking, why are you putting in so much effort into this thing that's not really giving you, any so-called financial return? And I mean, it's always been a question in the back of my mind, but to have, someone like your spouse question it's kind of painful.
Yeah.
So I thought about it, and then I realized that the me before Make It Work and the me now is actually radically different, I would say, internally, because of the conversations that I've had through this, as well as the actual building of the podcast. Like, it's therapy in a different way, not in the, your traditional, like, go find a therapist way. But I think that the product of this has been me changing and growing and in ways that I didn't expect, in giving myself more clarity, opening up my mind to new possibilities, realizing that life is, a journey, it's seasons, which is a big lesson that I had to take away for myself. Yeah, it's so interesting. Like, I told him I saved him a ton of money. And maybe that's how the conversation ended on a good note. He's like, oh yeah, I guess, yeah, financially maybe it didn't bring anything in, but I saved him money for therapy.
There you go.
Exactly. And then we went back to sleep happily. Well, yeah. So yeah, that was really, like, when I think about it, that's what it's given me personally, just this transformation and growth from the learnings, as well as actually building something. And I think like what we talked about in our previous conversation, I was looking to an outlet to build something. I'm not quite an art and craft person as well, but I realized that this has been the outlet of me learning new skills, learning new things like social media and analytics, and how to, when to post and things like that, and how to make an Instagram reel. Like, these learnings have been so invaluable. I think it's been really challenging, and it's helped me in this process as well as I've tried to figure out who I am. So that's my, like, number one impact on myself and in terms of learning. And then the other two, well, the second impact is that whole question again of who I am. I think the learning that I've had from these conversations is that we need to really realize that out of motherhood, we are a different person than we were before. Being a mom, or the transformation from a woman to a mom, hits so much at the core of who we are. And it's something that I did not realize. I had the impression that becoming a mom would just mean, like, logistical changes in my life, having to accommodate for different schedules and, learning just new skills. But that part of it hitting at the core of identity, I didn't realize until having these conversations with all these wonderful women who've done these amazing things with their work and their family life, that I realized that it was because of that struggle that they had to go through about figuring out how they wanted to marry, their motherhood with their career, that they've come up with a new definition of who they want to be in that new season. So that has been liberating, because I learned that there's no just one way. There's just a way that fits you for your personality type, your family style, your family culture, and your time in life as well, as a working person or not. So yeah, I would say that's been a huge, huge lesson.
Well, those are definitely huge lessons. And I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about when you mentioned it, that you had this conversation with your husband about monetizing podcast.
Yes, let's go there.
Hey, I mean, I wonder about that too, all the time.
So if anybody is wondering about whether you should have a podcast to make money, the answer is no.
Yeah. So my question is this, and I'm always curious about how other people handle it. Because I think in our society and as human, we always tied, what we do to kind of the outcome of it. And obviously, it would be great if podcast turns into lots and lots of gold. So knowing that making podcasts can just be a passion, how did you, because it must be, I mean, for me as well, it must be a bit of a process to convince yourself that I do wanted to keep going, even though there is no quick monetary return. How did you kind of convince yourself and still keep going completely based on your passion and motivation?
Yeah, I don't think I do it very well at all. I tell people that it's a hobby that probably takes up too much time, essentially. Yeah. So from a very rookie podcaster answering that question, I mean, I think because I know that it is a side project for what it's bringing in that form. And it's kudos also to my husband who's helped me see that, because I'm someone who's maybe more driven by passion and less on the practical aspects. I realized that I do need to set boundaries on the time I spend on because you can put in so much, it's an ending, like to make it perfect, to check on every caption of your subtitles. Like, It's just, it could really take up everything. But then knowing that, okay, I only have a limited amount of time because this is something, just a part of my life that I've given myself to. I think that's the main way that I've tried to keep it, I guess, contained before it takes over my life. Because there was a part of time where I guess everything was going into it. And then I think also finding help outside to speed up things, to improve processes, and to do stuff that I don't know how to do. I think setting a certain amount of budget for it as a hobby, and every hobby costs something, right? Yeah. So setting it as a base sort of cost, a sunk cost, was something that I had to put in together as well as a boundary to keep it, still maintainable and still be a responsible, human being and a mom and a wife, whilst I try to work on other pieces to basically bring in financial support for the family too.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I can hear the business school side of you coming through. You mentioned,
yeah.
Because you mentioned that the sunk cost and actually have it contained, like allocating a very specific time. And I think that's a really good takeaway for any kind of projects, right? To be clear on your intention. It could be for passion, it could be for actually earning money, but be very clear, but also be very clear on how much time you want to put in, how much resource, how much it's a sunk cost. And so I think that's a really good takeaway for it. Literally anything in life. It doesn't always have to be monetary return, but as long as it feeds your soul, but in a sustainable manner that you can kind of continue, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think practically, I don't stick to it hard and fast, but I guess it's something like, okay, I'm only going to maybe interview max, 1 or 2 people in a week, for example, because that takes time as well to research, to, do the work and all that. So there's that. And then I've also kept a tab on how much I used to spend in terms of editing. It used to be the whole process, like maybe 5-6 hours. Now I try to half it. So I've tried to keep to these, I guess, metrics or different ways of containing it that makes it more sustainable for myself. Yeah.
Nice. And speaking of that, I wanted to know, how did you celebrate your win on being featured as one of the best 8 podcasts for women in Singapore?
Well, yeah, that was a really sweet encouragement. I mean, it was really unexpected. I'm really thankful for that. How I celebrated? That's a good question.
We're not yet.
Yeah, let me get back to you on that one.
Okay. I see now.
Okay. This is the coach. This is the coach thing. I know what you're doing. Giving me homework. Okay. No, I probably should. I think I did post it up and everything, which was really nice. I mean, I shared it with all my family and friends, the close ones. Yeah. So I mean, I felt like I was kind of celebrating that way, but don't know if I need to do something different.
I mean, I think everyone celebrated differently, but again, I think it's an amazing achievement, and I think you should celebrate because it's hard work. It's a lot of hard work, but it's well deserved as well.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, I should. Okay, let's check back in our next coaching session.
We'll do. Yeah, and speaking of celebrating small wins, honestly, it's a big win. It's not even the small wins. I'm wondering, how do you define soft power, and how do you implement that in your life?
Yeah, that was a question that had me thinking a lot, because when I look back in my adult life, I think it's something that has evolved a lot. So when I think back in my days of uni and in MBA, my idea or how I was perhaps manifesting soft power or my power was through, I think, being quietly relentless. I think I never took no as an answer for a lot of things. Like, I was waitlisted for my university. To preempt that, I wrote to the dean of the school to, appeal for my job in San Francisco. It was also through a period of really hustling, and something is funny. It was like, I intercepted a health tech CEO on his way to the bathroom to ask if I could do a project for him, at a conference, stuff like that. Pretty relentless and quite the hustler, I suppose. So for me, that was what it looked like, I guess, at that point. But now, where I am. How soft power looks to me is knowing the power of taking a pause, knowing when to stop and when to just let go. I feel like, yeah, after, all those years of going, I had to learn this hard lesson through those transitions that I shared earlier that were, both self-chosen, but also like thrown upon me, to learn that. And now, because of the benefit that this pause has given me, I realized that it's such a beautiful thing to be able to just rest. Because I think it is something that is built into our DNA to have to rest. And I'm not just talking about having good sleep, right? It's about, in the Christian tradition, I started in the Jewish tradition, is to like take a Sabbath in a week, a day, to just stop and to be and to enjoy creation, to enjoy good food and friends and music and things that make you alive, and to work out of that, because I think that's probably the right rhythm of life, where we work out of the rest that we have, the restedness in who we are, in not having to strive. So that's what I think that what I am defining today as the soft power of learning to say no to the relentlessness of life and a lot of the expectations of what I should be doing, what I could be doing with the time I have, to take a pause and to just be,
So speaking of saying no, how is setting boundary, or has it been easy for you to set boundaries for yourself? Has it been more difficult, challenging? Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's so hard. I don't think I'm a very good boundary setter at all. I think I've been someone ever since young, just trying to take on more and more. As I grew in abilities, I'll be, just take on more, to a point that I felt like that was my worth, like being able to output a lot of things and to, achieve the schools and the grades that I wanted. And I mean, on one level, it's great, but then because I didn't have that right grounding in who I was and my identity, I think it became my identity of like being able to do all these things. And so when I couldn't do all these things, when I came back, I was out of job and I was going to have a kid, and I was trying to figure out just all these reverse culture shock things. I didn't know the different apps that Singapore is using again, and just having to re-enter my friendships and relationships. I felt like I was so unproductive and unuseful, I suppose. Yeah. So that really showed me that I just always prided myself as someone just being able to do a lot and to help with people, such that I didn't really have healthy boundaries.
And thinking back, what was the most difficult boundary you had to learn to set?
I think that's got to be the one where I give time for myself. Because I'm someone who used to value churning and producing, I never really felt like I knew how to rest. Like I felt like rest had to be earned.
Yes.
I felt like I needed to work till my eyes were like all dry and tired before I could like go to bed. Like I felt like I had to push myself to a point where I couldn't do it, and then I rest. So that has been the toughest boundary. And even today, when I put it in my calendar to take my Sabbath, which now happens on like Friday afternoon, and I have a cute little routine of lighting a candle to try to set the mood and to set my intention in the right direction, because it helps with just alerting my body with the scent. I find it such a resistance in me to like, okay, just put away whatever I'm doing and to take a breath and to start in a new direction. Yeah, it's something that I'm still learning. But yeah, work in progress.
But I love it that you actually set a very specific time of the week to intentionally do that. And yeah, I think it is a process. And are there any things that you have done before that you kind of allowed yourself to kind of have that shift? Is like, okay, because, for me as well, like I intentionally had to set like a Sunday morning for myself, no matter what. So then I can shift from worrying about ABCD to just be myself. But that shift sometimes takes a while. It's not an easy shift. I don't know if you do anything practical or anything that you do, prayers that you do that helped you to kind of transition into that space.
Yeah, so one of the things that I've learned is it's a small gesture of lighting a candle, a scented candle. It's visual. It's also olfactory. So you can smell it, you can see it. And it was quite fun because like my kids, they came back and they saw it like, oh, Mama, what's the candle? And then I had to tell them that, hey, this is like Mama's rest time. Mama wants to, just go slow and wants to enjoy you and wants to enjoy nature and wants to not work so much, basically. So it's visual, I guess, not just for me, but also those around you. So they kind of know that this is also a time that you are taking in a way for yourself. But okay, the idea of Sabbath is also that you're in community and you're with your people, your tribe, not people that drain you, but people that give you life, right? And so that's one. Something else on a more, I guess, daily basis is like alarms on my phone to set different modes to be in. So like at 9 o'clock, and I learned it from someone else online. This influencer I follow called Sahil Bloom. He's a really great, I guess he's a bit of a coach and a life teacher. And so he says at 9 o'clock, he sets this work beast mode, which I follow as well. And then, 5 p.m. is like, okay, wind down. And, the new mode is, well, in his alarm, he says like world best dad. And for me, it's like, okay, I'm going to be at the playground. So I say, playground mom, that kind of thing to the kids. So that is another kind of small thing that I do on a daily basis to change your mode, right? It's not just about maybe doing something different, which is part of it, but your hat that you're wearing, because it's a fact that we're just wearing so many different hats in a day, and you want to remind yourself that, okay, this is who you are right now.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love that you mentioned something visual and not just for you to see, also for your family to see. And I think it's so amazing for kids to know that my mama is actually taking a break, knowing that rest is important, because when they see you rest, they know that that's important, right? They will take that rest, because I think a lot of us maybe growing up, and for me, I see my mom always tired, doing all the work, doing all the housework,
all the things.
Never really sit down and rest. So I internalize that as rest is bad. Rest is lazy. So I think what you're doing is fantastic for your kids, because they know that, oh, taking a break, that's helpful, right?
Agree. I think so much of it is caught, right? All these lessons are caught. They're not just taught, because like you said, I grew up in a family where my mom would be, if she's watching TV, she'd be like sweeping the floor as well.
Exactly.
So that's what I started doing too. And my husband like, what is this, strange activity you're taking on while enjoying a show? So yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, I think so. And I remember when I was little, if I just sit on the couch, I may get yelled at, because my dad was like, why aren't you studying?
Oh no, yeah.
But then I internalized that as, oh, okay, I'm not supposed to take a break. But then again, I think, thank you for saying that taking a break, taking time for yourself, that is soft power. That requires soft power to do.
Yeah. And more in you than anything else, right? Because you're fighting against the scripts that you have that like, no, I have to do this, because if it doesn't, like, blah, blah, blah will happen. And I mean, maybe it's true, but sometimes it's just you being hard on yourself, right? Yeah. Or what you think you should be doing, the laundry, the whatever is not right in the house. Like, there's always something to be done. And we just need to tell ourselves, hold your ground. Like Sarah, it's okay. The world won't end. Just enjoy your creator, enjoy the creation, enjoy what he's giving you. Yeah. I'm still learning it, Sherry. It's so hard. I don't know why it's written so much into our maybe Asian female DNA.
Yes.
To keep doing or being, productive. It's hard.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen this quote floating around a lot. And then someone just said, like, they grow up watching women who are mostly tired and resentful, but never relaxed. Like, I thought about it. I'm like, I've never seen any women relaxed.
I saw that quote. You're right. I saw that quote too. Yeah. It's so interesting. Yeah. The relaxed women are seen as maybe, ladies in Singapore, we call them tai-tais, or, those married to really rich husbands, so they have that luxury, and it's not exactly a flattering term, right? Either.
Yeah, exactly. As if we need to, again, like you said, earn the relax by marrying someone really rich, then you get to relax.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's really important for us to kind of like remind ourselves, who are we watching growing up, and what is the example you want to set for your kids, right?
True. Yeah.
And I know, Sarah, you're about to embark on another new chapter soon, you have a new job. Just wondering how you're going to take all of these lessons you have learned from building Make It Work and implement that into your next chapter, which is really exciting.
So this is where we need our next coaching session. To ask me again in 3 months. Oh my gosh. That is a great question. I want to say, and maybe this is like my voice note to myself here. Well, okay, for the full-time job, it's going to be a flexible work arrangement. So I'm going to be working 4 days, which is something I fought hard for. I want to say that I will be giving my best, but approaching it with an open-handedness, knowing that it's not something that I have to desperately prove myself for. Why I'm there is because I think that there is value. That value has been seen. I just need to lean into it, to show it without feeling like everything counts on it. Yeah, because I feel like I'm in such a different station from where I was maybe 5 years ago, feeling like I had to constantly prove myself, and I feel like I had to earn a seat and everything. Yeah, I want to remind myself that I have value, and I can go into it knowing that it's okay even if it doesn't work out in the way that I hope for it to be, because life is a series of experiments. It's seasons, and every season has something beautiful in itself, and I want to learn from that season. It could be really hard at the start. I imagine it would be. It's a new job, you know, it's a leadership role, and I still have all these different things to juggle with the podcast and young kids, but I hope that I'll be able to model a graciousness even in that role to my team and even back home, that it is possible to find a good rhythm, a good balance. I think things will have to shift in terms of priorities, maybe just less on the podcast. I think I just need to be realistic there. But at the end of the day, I think the posture I want to have is that of being open-handed and not avoiding the worst in that sense, like not having all the worst case scenarios, but going there with a posture of learning and wanting to enjoy that season for what it has, because that's the biggest learning I've had in even the season of the pause in the past 2-3 years of not doing full-time work, but learning so much about myself, producing something that I never expected, the podcast, and at the end of the day, gaining so much myself as a person that is not something I expected really going into it, right? But so, yeah.
Thank you for that. I love that. I mean, I'm going to clip this, and this is their voice memo, and I think it's a voice memo for everyone who's listening, because it is, you know, different season in your life. You learn different things, and it's a continuous learning process. And
it is.
to have grace for yourself. I love it that you said that. You know, we're always trying different things. We may not be perfect all the time. We don't have to be perfect all the time, but having grace for yourself and just have that openness to learn.
Yep. Yeah. And you got this.
There you go. I think it's a voice memo for everyone. I'm gonna save that for myself as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Sherry.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sarah, for today. Again, I'm gonna leave Make It Work in the description box, and please have a listen. She has so many amazing episodes with women in Singapore, how to make it work. And I especially loved her closing question. I'm not going to reveal here. Go ahead and listen. And yeah, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Sherry. It's been a wonderful, inspiring conversation. Really appreciate our time.
Oh, thank you.
Continue the good work that you're doing. Yeah, really
thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Make It Work, where we uncover inspiring stories of modern working mamas in Asia who have redefined their careers whilst putting family first. Please help others discover the show by leaving a review and rating on wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok. Meanwhile, here's to you, making it work.